In this video, I'm going to share with you my 5-step process to help you experiment with culture change. Hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lizzie Benton and I'm a culture coach based here in the UK. I've been working in culture for more than 6 years, helping teams, startups and small businesses in a variety of industries and sectors to create great places to work. I've seen firsthand how people can get really overwhelmed when it comes to culture change. There's so much to change and not really much idea about where to start, and it can all just feel really overwhelming when so many things need improving. So I want to share with you this process that I use and I've seen be really effective in establishing some momentum around change so that you feel less overwhelmed and have a very clear and simple guide to follow. And one thing I want to make really clear is that anybody can use this approach. You can be a leader in a team, you can be a startup, you can be a small business. The brilliant thing about this process is it's really versatile and approachable from all different levels. So get your pen and paper ready and let's do this. The first step in this process is to identify the tensions and challenges that currently exist within your company culture. Now, you may have already done an employee engagement survey, but I want you to dig a little bit deeper. And I want to suggest to you to do focus groups and one-to-one interviews. When I work with my clients, the first step I do is a Semco style selfie. This is a diagnostic tool that helps me to understand where the team currently sits and some of the fundamental elements of culture. And although this specific survey was designed for self-managing organisations, it's brilliant at identifying where on the scale teams are with things like trust and transparency and autonomy. By the way, this is not an ad or any sponsorship for you to use the selfie. It's just one that I use. There are many other survey and diagnostic tools available out there, and there may be one that you're already comfortable with. Now, the next step is to dig a little bit deeper into that data. When I'm working with clients, I will do one-to-one interviews with team members and some focus groups, depending on the team or company size. And the purpose here is to really understand, what does all of this data mean? Can I gain some deeper context as to why things are lower than they should be? So really, I always like to think of it as the survey as the drawing of the skeleton. We kind of have a rough outline of where things are, but the focus group and the interviews help to paint in the picture. Now, it is very easy for me as a culture coach to come in as an external third party because people are very comfortable talking to me about their work because they know that when they talk to me, it's not going to go any further or become office gossip. So if you are doing this internally and not getting any external support, such as from a consultant or a coach like me, then you may want to really think about how you can make sure you anonymize as many parts of this as possible to make sure people feel comfortable in giving more detail about the context. So for example, you might do a follow-up survey with a form that has some deeper questions around some of the key themes from the diagnostic, where you can ask people to give some more context or examples. From these interviews and focus groups, what I'll be doing is extracting all of the themes. So what are some of the common patterns, themes, language that people are using in these interviews? That really helps to paint a very good picture of some of the tensions or challenges that might be occurring. So for example, if the diagnostic tool says that communication is really low, then the interviews will give me deeper understanding of what specifically that means to the team or the company. At the end of step 1, I should have a very clear idea of exactly the challenges and pain points that exist within the company culture. Step 2 is all about deciding where to work on first. Now, because we have the data from the diagnostic and we have the key themes from the interviews and focus groups, we have some very clear trends and patterns of what the challenges actually are. So now it's up to the team to decide, well, where do we start? If we were to pick one thing out of all of these, what are the things that we really need to prioritize, or what's the one place we want to start? When I was doing this recently with one client, we had 3 key priorities that came out. Communication in meetings was really poor. Clarity around roles and responsibilities wasn't very great. and also feedback didn't really exist. So they were the 3 areas that this team particularly wanted to work on. But like I said at the start, we just need to pick one. Otherwise, we can get overwhelmed with trying to change too much too soon. So the team decided to choose meetings. Now, the way that I got the team to prioritize what they wanted to work on was by using a dot voting system. So I gave them little dot stickies that they had to place near the area that they felt was most present for them and they really wanted to work on. I used red for this is most important to us, yellow for this is important but not right now, and green, we can wait on this one. So I used a color coding system to help people navigate where to place their dots. At the end of step 2, you should have a very clear topic to work on. For step 3, it's all about deciding what we're going to do differently to help improve this area. So what are some of the things we can start to do that can alleviate some of the frustrations and challenges around this particular area? So we're focusing on solutions in step 3. Normally with a client, what I would do here is facilitate a workshop where I would teach and train them some new ideas to help them think about alternative ways they might create a solution. It's then up to the team to decide on the experiment and the solution that they're going to test for the next 8 weeks. So although as an external facilitator I'm teaching, what you might do internally without the help of someone like me is to get your team to find new ideas or new ways of doing things and present them to the rest of the team, a bit of a crowdsourcing approach. And then in the session, decide collectively what ideas you really like and what you might try. By the end of step 3, we want to have a very clear solution and experiment that we're going to test for the next 8 weeks. Step 4 is really simple. You're going to experiment with this change for the next 8 weeks to 3 months. Really, it's up to you to decide the time frame, but 8 weeks to 3 months is a really good sprint, as it's known in agile methodologies, to enable us to really experiment with something and test the water. So this can be a great opportunity for you to just see how things go. Does this really work? Be curious as to the things that get in the way or where it might fail. And then we're going to come back to it in step 5. At step 5, we're going to conduct a retrospective on that experiment. A retrospective is a simple framework that helps us to really reflect on that experiment and comes from the agile methodologies. So it really helps us to question what went well, what went wrong, and what would we change? And from this, we can either decide to evolve the experiment, keep it as it is, or move on to the next area that needs to be worked on. As I said at the start, this is a really simple approach to experimenting with culture change that anybody can do. And the reason I favour this approach is because it just helps us take one thing at a time. It takes away that sense of overwhelm and also the sense that we're trying to change too much too quickly. The other reason I favour this approach is because it's very participative. We're getting people involved in co-creating the experiment, in designing something together. This isn't a top-down, we're telling you what you need to change. This is a, let's bring everybody together and get the collective wisdom from the team to design something that's going to work. Because the more brains we have involved, the better the solution. And the third and final reason why I really like this approach is because we're working on something that is actually being experienced in the company culture. It's not just a nice to have or an assumption. This is data-backed change where we know that this is something that people truly feel needs to be changed. I recommend giving this a try with a really small pilot group and seeing how it goes. I've also included this approach in my book, How to Build the Company Culture You Really Want, which I've linked below in the description. And it gives you a very detailed description of how to conduct this experiment and also which areas you might want to start with first. Happy experimenting, folks!